welcome to Brewing Success, where growth is the mission, change is the reward, and progress is the goal. I am your host, Andrea Gebhardt. I'm a former educator turned passionate entrepreneur whose desire to create impact has never wavered. I have spent the last decade teaching, mentoring, and coaching people on how to create success in their lives and businesses with proven strategies and systems that not only bring about change, but big results. When it comes down to it, teaching is my specialty, leadership is my jam, and inspiring you to live a bigger, fuller life is what I'm all about. This podcast will give you the knowledge and tools you need to brew success in almost any area of your life. You're going to walk away each week feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to step outside your comfort zone and into the next level of who you're meant to be. Now let's get into today's episode. It is so good to be back in the studio with you. Here we go again, back to brewing success and other things. Seriously though, it feels so good. I am truly honored that you are here with me, back for more learnings, more laughs, and more importantly, more conversations around growth and progress. So it has been a minute. The last episode I recorded and posted was actually on June 24th. And while I usually give myself some time to step away from the podcast in the summer, mostly because it's impossible to find a distraction-free time to record between everyone being home and the kids and their friends constantly in the backyard swimming or playing basketball or pickleball out front, or my daughter blaring Taylor Swift or Benson Boone from her room, belting the painful lyrics like she has experience in all those complex life matters. Either way, I didn't intend for the pause actually to be this long, but you know what? Sometimes breaks are required and rest is needed, and our time and our energy are pulled elsewhere, and our emotions too. And so, I guess if I'm going to say anything here, I'm just going to say to give yourself grace. And I started to beat myself up at the beginning. I was like, oh my gosh, got to jump back, got to get back into the podcast, got to get back into writing and recording. And that whole process that I've been doing for the last, 2.5, almost 3 years. But then I was just like, sometimes it's okay. It's okay. I had to give myself a little bit of a pep talk. But here we are. We're back. It's so good. So I knew this summer was actually going to be a bit different and really challenging at the beginning of, we kicked off summer, my son graduating high school. That in and of itself was an experience and just a little bit of denial. And then at the beginning of July, we headed to Vegas for Dance Nationals, which is a very long, exhausting, grueling week of costumes, classes, performances, 20,000 steps a day. And to add to that, the overstimulating nature of Las Vegas in and of itself, and the triple-digit temperatures 24/7. It makes for a really long week, but we do it and we have fun and we make the most of it. I absolutely love watching my daughter perform. She is just so gifted. And, I have to tell you as a parent, I really don't think there is anything as rewarding or as moving as when your child finds something that they are truly passionate about that really brings them joy. There's just something so magical about watching that happen. And I love nationals because it's the event where she really showcases, and all the girls really, their growth throughout the year. They are different dancers by the time that nationals roll around, and it's really a joy and it's a privilege to witness that entire journey, that whole process that they all go through. Unfortunately, though, there was a Ben & Jerry's right near the elevator, and it became a daily habit to just grab a scoop of ice cream on the way up and sometimes on the way back down. And for those of you guys who know me well, I'm lactose intolerant, so that did not... of course they have sorbets, but that's so boring, right? You go to an ice cream counter and you're like, hey, can I have the frozen mushed fruit? No, you're at Ben & Jerry's. You want Cherry Garcia and double chocolate fudge brownie movie night or whatever random names of the things that they're called. But either way, we had a wonderful time. It was amazing. And as soon as we got home, my time and attention shifted in a major way because now, at that point, it was just a few weeks away from nailing down an apartment down south for my oldest to move into because he'd be starting college soon. And by the way, it's still very weird for me to say that I have a kid in college. And not because it makes me feel old, it just doesn't seem possible. I mean, he was just a little boy. He was just a little boy flying his little Buzz Lightyear around the house with full-blown sound effects and a trail of other toys right behind him. I'm the first of most of my friends to experience this transition, and it's been interesting to say the least. I was a little nervous going into the move because I didn't know what to expect. How I was going to feel, what it was going to be like. I really had no point of personal reference, so every moment of the entire process was new and uncharted. I expected to be super emotional, but I wasn't. I was just focused on getting him in and settled, and for the first time as his mom, took a step to be a side-by-side guide, not an out front mom guide. And let me just tell you, when you do that, when you step into that guide role, your perspective as a parent changes. The way you see your child changes. It's like this exchange of energy and understanding takes place. I gotta liken it to it must be what like the mother bird feels and what the baby bird feels when she nudges him to the edge of the nest, preparing him to take his first flight. Like she's like, all right, it's time to go. And he's like, oh no, it's time to go. It's just this interesting energy exchange. And overall, it was a really fun experience helping him get things set up. The discussions down the aisles of TJ Maxx, me putting things in the cart, him taking them out, me pointing things out and asking questions, and him not sure why he would need the item in question. This is probably the most hilarious part. Like, when did you ever have the shower curtain liner conversation with your kids? Oh gosh, it was so funny. You just slip into mom mode, and getting things done supersedes how you feel about those things until it's all done and everything is all set up, and you take a look around and you realize there isn't any more for you to do. This is it. The moment when you're no longer needed. And for the first time, you leave them. You turn your back and you walk away. For the first time, they are sleeping in a home that isn't yours. For the first time, they aren't just a room away. They are hundreds of miles away. In an instant, you wonder if you taught them all the things they need to know. And you're quickly reminded that you raised them in a figured out environment, so they'll be okay. And then you immediately regret not teaching them certain things like cross-contamination and cutting boards. Then the voices stop and your heart drops as you realize that this is not just a major milestone in their lives, but a major turning point in yours as a parent. The point where you turn and look back and see that little boy who stole your heart, and at the same time, the young man who is on to his next adventure. It is wild. I do, though, have some advice for those of you who will be onto this chapter soon. Listen to me wholeheartedly when I say this to you. Do not do the move-in thing in a day. Do not do it in a day. There are so many people who load up the car, load up the U-Haul, make the drive to the college, pack their kid in a dorm, maybe grab dinner, and then they just bounce and go home. Do not do that. Instead, I have a theory here. Here it is. Are you ready for it? Instead, count how many hours you were in labor with that kid, and then take that many days to get it done. So if you were in labor with little Sarah for 4 hours, then take 4 days to do the move-in. I'm not joking. And if you were in labor for a crazy amount of time, then count the number of times you had to push and take that many days. Or if you're like me and ended up having to have a C-section, take their birth weight and divide it in half and take that many days. It's literal science. Trust me, you need as much time as it took for you to bring them into this world to adjust to this next big phase. And it's so interesting because it's this, you're really excited because it's college and you did that. And it was fun and amazing. But at the same time, you're sad because it's college and scary and there's so much. And you're just over here thinking, goodness, I hope they make better decisions than I did. And I hope that they don't do certain things like I did, knowing full well that they're going to, because we all kind of have similar college experiences to some degree. But seriously, take your time here. for those of you guys who are listening, who are parents, or you have people that you love and care about that are going to be in this space, please give them this advice. Take your time. Don't rush it. This is a huge transition, and there's a lot to process for you and for them. Luckily for me, Ethan moved into an apartment, and his roomies weren't due until the end of the week. So I got to stay there and have all of that time. But some of my friends in the summer who are moving their kids off to college got Airbnbs or hotels down the street to hang out and take the time. There's just so much that happened during that time that if I moved him up in a day, I wouldn't have experienced. So much I learned about watching him, seeing how he moved about as an adult in this very adult situation. It was it was comical at some points, worrisome at others, and also so rewarding. He enjoyed having me there, actually. Made him feel comfortable because I kept checking in. He kept checking in, like, "Are you cool? Like, are you glad I'm still here? Do you want me to come?" He's like, "No, Mom, I like having you here." And even the day that I left, I said, "Is it going to be weird, like, when you wake up tomorrow and I'm not here?" And he was like, "Yeah, kind of. I like having you here. And I think there's a peace of mind in that." And so it just allows for this gradual acceptance and release simultaneously. I'm so grateful for it. Plus, you can't put a price on all the quality time, quality conversation, opportunities to make one more snack, one more meal, one more hug goodnight. So make the time and take the time, because this is a big transition, and it sets the tone and the stage for so much. So my next pieces of advice I'm just going to give to you here. And, this is like not a typical conversation for us to have, all right, on the Brewing Success podcast. It's always leadership topics or strategies and, different life hacks and things of that nature. But we're coming back together after a few weeks off, and I just want to connect with you and just kind of like bring you into my world and where things are and how they've been going. And so I just want to just give some advice here. And it might be something that you can use, take and use for yourself, or something you might impart on someone else. But, during this time that you have with them, I think when I look back, there's a lot of, there's no like guidebook, like moving your kid in and the questions to ask and the things to do. You just kind of like figure it out in the moment. And part of me is really grateful for the level of like personal growth and development and leadership experience that I have, because I just see things a little bit differently. I have a little bit different perspective, a little bit different insight coming into the situation. But I'm going to tell you, tell your kid, what you would like in terms of communication. Because when you're at home and you're in the day-to-day life, you see each other day-to-day, you're in passing, you have regular communication that you've been doing, but now suddenly they're living outside of the home. And you don't want to be the parent that's overbearing, but you also don't want to like not set up a communication expectation. So tell them what you would like in terms of communication, and find a happy medium, because they're going to get annoyed if you're trying to call all the time to just like check in and make sure all is well. But figure out whatever that rhythm looks like for you. For the first, I think it was like for the first 2 weeks, I texted and called every single day, just checking in and checking in. And I did that for two reasons. Number one, I remember when my mom dropped me off at college and she drove away same day, right? She drove away same day and left. I did not expect to feel what I felt. For the first time in my life, I felt lonely. I felt lonely. I felt alone. I felt somewhat abandoned. I felt so many different things. It was like getting used to the quiet and the silence after growing up in a loud home, So if your oldest that you're moving out has siblings and there's pets at home and it's always this, that, and the other, that silence is difficult to get used to. And it's just a scary thing. You're in a place that's brand new, an environment that you're not sure of yet. And it's just a lot to kind of take in. So I just called and checked in every single day. And you'll know when it's time to stop doing that when they bring it up. So I remember I called, he was like, "Mom, are you going to literally call me every day?" And I said, "Well, I just want to make sure you're good and adjusting, because it's a lot, and there's some things we forgot to talk about, whatever the case was." And I said, "Well, what do you want it to look like?" He's like, "Well, I don't really mind if you message or call me like from time to time, but just like not every day." I'm like, "Okay." So, our kids are texters primarily. So it's texting here and there, asking questions about their day, about, he's playing water polo, so practice and things of that nature. What'd you have for dinner? How'd that go? What'd you learn to cook today? But what the really cool thing is when you stop calling, it creates space for them to need you. And then they call. So I almost bawled my eyes out when he called the very first time. I was like, Mom, how do you make your spaghetti again? And I was like, oh, and I put him on mute and I was like tap dancing and like shaking. We're like, yay, this is like the moment I've been waiting for, which is so pathetic, but so awesome. I like talked to him all about how to like make the spaghetti. So, talk to them about what you want communication to look like and find that rhythm that works specifically for the both of you. And my advice here too is just to not take it personally when they don't get back to you or they don't call you right away. You have to remember they're learning how to adult and be grown-ups and make their own decisions. And they also at the same time want to prove to you that they can. And so it's just such a fun process to be in learning this and teaching this as I go, right? So my next piece of advice is instead of telling them what to do or think, even during the move-in process, ask questions. I found myself wanting to say, oh, put this here, put this here, put this here, right? I wanted to set his kitchen up the way I would set up a kitchen, but it turned into where do you think the silverware should go? Where do you want to put, where do you guys want to set up food? Or how do you want to set up and organize this? And all of the different things, just asking the questions instead of telling. And it's just real interesting because it just gets them to think for themselves and, have a little bit of autonomy when it comes to setting up their place and where they're living, but asking the questions instead of telling. And I learned a lot, what do you want to do today? Or what activity do you want to prioritize? We need to do these things. What do you feel is most important? And the reason why asking questions are so important is because the questions we ask others soon become the questions they start to ask themselves. So we kind of give them the context and the guidance to kind of create those pathways for questions they're going to have to ask themselves when they're in certain situations as they're learning to navigate life here as an adult. The next piece of advice is to let them lead. And so this one was really hard for me. If we're friends and you know me, if we go anywhere together, I'm driving because I like to be in control. Some of you guys are like, oh my gosh, yes, this is so true. I do. I like to be in control. Shocker, I know, as do most of you probably. The ambitious folks, we're control freaks. The type A's, that's just how we roll, right? We're type A. We're at the front of the alphabet. We're the first type. Like, it just makes sense. But let them lead. And I found myself, having a really hard time with this is what do I mean to let them lead? Let them make decisions. Let them, you're there as a support person. So you don't want to be the driver. You want to encourage them to do that. You want to step back so that they can. So much of their lives we've been leading, right? So much of their lives we've been out front making the decisions, choosing where we're going to go next, what we're going to do next, what this is going to look like, how it's going to flow, the routines and procedures, the schedules around the house, everything. We are the ones who control that as a parent. So now they're going to be in a place where they're on their own and they're having to figure this out by themselves. So even in that transition period of those few days that you take to help them get moved in, allow them to lead. The next piece of advice is to encourage and validate their thoughts and feelings. Encourage and validate. And I just think it's so important to remember that, this is a big step for them. We want to encourage, the process. We want to encourage all of it. I mean, and the really cool part about taking the time to go and do all this is you get to go explore the new place that they're living together. You get to go learn the surface streets, the side streets, what grocery stores, what places to shop, where the movie theater is, just all of the different, where the car wash is, gas stations, what parts of town to avoid at night. You just get to teach them so much in the moment, right? Like we had some valuable parallel parking lessons because it's just different. And, wow, that was really hard. Yeah, it is really hard to do that. That I didn't think about that. Yep. It's a good thing to be aware of. You just want to encourage and validate their thoughts and feelings. And, even going on a campus and learning where some of the buildings were and some of the classes were going to be and where to park and, getting a parking pass and just all of those types of things. Like it just helps reduce overwhelm and creates opportunity for them to kind of learn in a safe, constructive environment, which I think is so, so important. The last thing you ever want is to like drop your kid off for college or walk away and they're just so unsure about everything. And, just constantly checking in, like, how are you feeling? Do you feel overwhelmed? Are you feeling excited? What are your worries right now? and talk some of those things through so that you have the opportunity to give advice and guidance on whatever it is. So, obviously, as you guys can tell, there's a lot. There's a lot going on this summer. So yeah, a break was needed, a break to focus on getting my first one moved away and off to college. And this new season of our household where now there's just 3 kids, 3 dogs, a cat. Can you even believe it? What is my life? It's a new season for this household. It's busy, chaotic some days with all their activities and obligations. I know you know out there, it's crazy, but I wouldn't trade any of it for the world, soaking it all up, because before we know it, I'll be moving them all out and on their own, one after another, literally 3 years in a row. So this next season is going to go by in a blink. So this is my reminder to you to be present in this next season. Focus on who they're growing into over what kind of grades they have or whether they're getting their chores done or not, and lean into the moments where they come to you for whatever it is. I'm going to say that again. Lean into the moments when they come to you for whatever it is. When your daughter says, Mom, let's yap. That's the new, let's talk, let's yap. Mom, let's talk. Put the phone down. Give her your attention. Have the conversation. When your son wants to sit next to you on the couch and watch an action movie you could care less about, sit on the couch and watch the movie. When somebody rolls into your room in the middle of the night because they're all of a sudden starving and they want to make food together, go make food together. Lean into the moments when they come to you for whatever it is, because the only time you have with them is the time that you have with them right now. So make the most of it. So like I said, needless to say, it's been busy. And I know it's been busy for you too. Busy and crazy. It's busy and crazy out there in general. It's an election year. So things are super intense politically. Inflation sucks. So we're all in positions of different types of struggle. And everything just feels very distracting and very loud, right? I can't be the only person noticing that. So let's make a pact. Let's agree and promise to take a deep breath, revisit our priorities, and prepare to focus our energy on growth and progress. Let's turn down the noise and turn up our intentions. Let's eliminate the things and the people who no longer align with who we are and where we're going. And let's be diligent in our days so that we can end this year proud of what we accomplished and excited over the momentum we've created going into the next year and the next level of who we were made to be. I am so excited to be back with you. I've got some really incredible topics we're going to dive into. And my hope is that you tune in each week to learn and be ready to grow. Send this episode over to a friend and get them on the growth track with you. And if you have the time, leave a review of your favorite episode. Your reviews help the podcast grow and reach new audiences all over the world. Thanks again, you guys, for being such a valued part of the Brewing Success community, where growth is the mission, change is the reward, and progress is the goal.